Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Sydney and today we are doing my July reading wrap up. I read 7 books this month and 3 of them were on my Kindle, so let's go through all of these. I feel like this month was very hit or miss because I had some really great reads and then I had a couple that were just absolutely not doing it for me, so which honestly isn't bad. I'd rather have a couple of highs and a couple of lows instead of just having a bunch of super average mediocre reads throughout the month. So overall it was a really good month. I've also been doing a lot of reading outside this year because summers where I live are just absolutely beautiful. It's sunny, it's warm but not too hot, it's very breezy and just perfect reading weather, and we have a hammock in our backyard, and so I've just spent every single morning the past couple months reading for at least an hour or so, and it's honestly just the best way to start my day. And I will say I am looking forward to fall and making a fall TBR, but I'm one of those people who just prefers to hold on to summer for as long as I possibly can. So we're still in August, we still have like a whole month of summer reads to go, and the time will come for fall books. And I'm looking forward to that. But for right now, I'm just soaking up the sun. I'm soaking up all the thrillers and romances until it's time to go to spooky, gothic, eerie, dark, because there's nothing like reading along with the seasons. It's seriously the most satisfying thing, and it just helps you feel so much more immersed in the books, which I love. So starting off the month, I read The Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. And this is one of my most highly anticipated reads for the past year or so. I have been meaning to get into the series for so long. I'm a huge romantasy lover, and I was going into this with such high expectations, and every single person, almost every person I have seen talk about this book, this series overall, has said it's up there with ACOTAR, it's their favorite series of all time, it's their favorite male main character of all time, it's their favorite love story in a romance ever. And so going into that, I had such high hopes that this would be an absolute hit for me. Unfortunately, I just don't know what it was for me that this fell so flat. I think the biggest thing for me is that I didn't really love the female main character, DM. She almost felt very contradictory in her personality, where she had this moral compass and she wanted to protect her family and do what was right and save all these people. But then she made decisions that just didn't feel in line with what her true character was supposed to be. And I also felt like there were a lot of tropes present that were only there because they're popular tropes and that everyone loves them. And I just didn't feel like they served the story at all. And to me, a lot of things just felt out of place. I tried. I promise I really tried to love this, because again, I really thought that I would give this 5 stars and I ended up rating it 2. And I think it was just because looking back, like I was teetering between a 2 and a 3 star, but looking back, I just can't remember a single moment that I really felt connected to the characters or excited about what was going to happen next. To be honest, I kind of just wanted to get to the end of it to see how it would wrap up and then just move on. But that's not to say that I don't recommend this book, because again, everyone seems to love this series, and so I still think that it's worth giving a try because it's so well received and it's so well loved. Just because it didn't work for me, it'll probably work for you. I also think a big part of it had to do with the fact that I listened to about half of this on audio, and I just think I've come to the conclusion that fantasy books on audio are not a good match for me. I just can't connect to what's going on when I'm listening to a book versus when I'm physically reading it, and I think that a lot of things got lost in translation. So my experience with this book could have been completely on me, and I'm owning that. Maybe one day I'll actually reread it in the future. I think that that's something I could see myself doing, just to see if my experience is any different. But for right now, I'm definitely leaning towards didn't enjoy it, probably just isn't the book for me, which is okay. And the second book that I read in July is 5 Broken Blades by Mai Corland. I think that's how you say her name. This is a book that I walked past in every single Walmart and considered picking up but never actually did. I don't know why I didn't ever pick this up. I was always drawn to it and very intrigued by it, but for whatever reason, I just decided to pass on it. And my husband knew that. Every time we were in a store, I picked it up and I was like, should I get this? And he picked up on that internally, and he got me this for my birthday, which was on the 3rd of July. So early on in the month, I dove right into this, and I'm so glad that I did. This is such an interesting story, and the characters in this book carry the entire thing. I wasn't sure how I would feel about all the different POVs. We have 5 main characters. We've got an assassin, a prince, a thief, a bodyguard, and a spy, and they're all banding together to take down the king. But the thing is, each of them has a different reason for why they want to get rid of the king, but we don't exactly know who's in it for the right reasons, who we can trust, who's lying, who's being dishonest, and it almost reminds me of a whodunit mystery type feel, but they're all competing with each other but also working together at the same time. It's just such a unique premise for a story, and I absolutely flew through this. The ending, I want to say the last 50 pages or so, had me on the edge of my seat, and I was just mind blown by all the different twists and the plot reveals that were here. Things that I had no idea were coming, different turns that I just did not expect whatsoever. So if you want a book that's very bingeable, has great characters, and just a really cool plot, this is a really, really good one. I highly recommend it. Also, the sprayed edges are just so cool. I know this book is everywhere, so you probably recognize the edges, but really, hats off to this author though. It was brilliant. And the next book I read was Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is such a cute romance. I really enjoyed this. I'm just a huge fan of the fake dating trope. I think that the tension that it brings to the table is so fun to read. I do feel like the situation that got them into fake dating was one of those that did feel a bit more realistic than others I've read, which I really appreciated because I like when things don't just feel done for the sake of having a good plot. I love when the story elements actually make sense and they're actually believable. And this is my first Emily Henry book, and I was debating for a long time whether I wanted to pick up this book because I'd heard such great things about it, but I just typically don't gravitate towards contemporary romance. Sometimes I find the dialogue to be cheesy and just over the top and not really my thing. That's why I prefer typically fantasy, because it feels like the stakes are higher. But honestly, I was just in a mood for a rom-com-y, cheesy, corny, cute, silly romance, and this was exactly that. I was also surprised to find that there is a lot of depth to this story. We have a few things that the characters are dealing with that are actually pretty deep and that are not surface level, and I think that always adds so much to a romance when the characters are actually going through difficult situations and they're having conversations that are bringing them close together, and you know that their relationship is so much deeper than just insta love, which is so important for me personally in order to feel connected to a romance, and this definitely did it. I rated this 3.5 stars. It was so close to 4 for me, but at times I did feel like it dragged just a little bit and the plot kind of stalled where we were just focusing on the characters, which is totally fine, but it did just feel a bit slow at parts for me. Overall though, it was a really good read and I'm glad I picked it up after debating for so long. And then I read The Duke's Unwanted Virgin. This is me in my historical romance mood. I was just dying for a really good historical romance, especially after binging Bridgerton this summer, and I've been watching My Lady Jane on Amazon, which is such a good historical romance kind of comedy show if you're interested in that. So I picked up this book and dove right in, and I definitely will say, like, this could have used several more rounds of editing. There were mistakes and inconsistencies in the plot and the characters, but putting all that aside, it was a fun time. It was definitely spicy. It had the great romance. It had all the really good elements of a historical period piece that we really love. And yeah, it was fun. It wasn't the most memorable book I've ever read, but I definitely recommend it if you're willing to look past the editing and just get right to the story and focus on the characters. We have a forced marriage of convenience, definitely forced proximity. We have a lot of tension between the main couple because at first they hate each other. They're literally only getting married for logistics, and we really get to see that slow burn unfold, and it's a good time. And then next I read The Best Lies by David Ellis. This was an easy 5 stars. I absolutely was blown away by this book. This is a psychological crime thriller about our main character, Leo Balanoff. He's a secret agent, or he's a district attorney or something. He's in law enforcement, and he's also a diagnosed pathological liar. A lot of stuff goes down in this book that I could not get enough of. I really flew through this, and there was even a touch of unexpected romance that I just fell in love with because I feel like it added so much to the stakes of this thriller. And if you've read Look Closer by David Ellis, you know that he is such a great author at setting up clues throughout the story that make you think the plot is going one way, but then it completely goes somewhere different. And it's just so much fun to see this all unravel. I feel like this is one of the smartest thrillers I've read. Almost like Breaking Bad or Prison Break or any of those really big crime shows where there's just like so many pieces to this huge web that unravels. And the plot is just so complex, which I really, really enjoyed because it had me guessing the entire time. I felt so emotionally attached to the characters and just so impressed by the way this was written, and it was so fleshed out, and I just can't say enough good things about this. Everything about this book was 10 out of 10. Characters, the romance, the crime aspect, the thriller, the mystery, the plot, the pacing, like all of it was chef's kiss. So good. And next book I read in July was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This book has been on my shelf for about a year at this point, and I don't know if I was just saving this for the perfect time, or I knew I would love it and so I put it off because I was just, for whatever reason, afraid it would let me down. But this was so good. I rated this 4 stars. The atmosphere in this story is so unlike anything else I've ever read. We have a magical world and just really cool Alice in Wonderland type feel of a setting where the main character, she goes off to be a part of these games. And in these games, it's almost like a performance where we have actors and different clues and different situations that happen right in front of you where you're not sure if it's actually real or if it's not. And her main goal at the end of the day is to find her sister because her sister is missing within this game. She falls in love, she has to solve all these clues, and it's just so whimsical. I think that's like the perfect word for this book. And I don't know what it is about Stephanie Garber's writing, but I flew through this. Like, I would look up from the book and realize I had just read 50 pages. And it's such a refresher from books that feel like you're enjoying the story, but they're dragging on a bit, or it just takes a long time to read, or the writing is kind of tricky to digest. This was so bingeable and just extremely immersive, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading the next book. I need to go buy the rest of the series right now because I only have this one and I want the full set because I know I'm going to binge this for sure. And then lastly, in July, I read another thriller, Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Yeah, I had to double check that was actually her name. So this one was really good. I rated it about 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but it definitely wasn't the best thriller I've read. What I did appreciate about this though was that the writing was really, really good and the characters were extremely fleshed out. And I feel like in some thrillers, it's more about the plot and less about the characters and their relationships. But in this one, the plot was really good, but we also had some great character development and writing that just made me want to underline because I was like, oh, that was actually really thought-provoking. So there's a lot of depth to it, but what I didn't love about it was I just felt like the plot twists at the end fell flat, and I think that I enjoyed this book more for like the first 60% or so, and then the last 40% just was underwhelming. So that's why I struggle with this one, because I liked it but I didn't like it at the same time. So it's kind of just right there in the middle for me. And that is everything that I read in the month of July. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, leave a blue heart for Best Lies since that was my favorite read this month, and also comment and let me know if we had any similar reads this month, what your favorite book was, and I'll see you in the next one.